Welcome to another week of Sittin Courtside. Today's episode is sponsored by none other than us. The guys right here in front of you, Sittin Courtside. You can head over to Kyle. I already forgot it. What is it called?
Happy Hippo Home Decor.
Happy Hippo Home Decor. That is where we are selling all of our gear. We got sweatshirts, we got t-shirts, we got glasses, bottles, fancy little things. Get all that and more over there. Not a free ad, but it is a free ad. We're going to just name it now, name drop it, because everyone's like, why are you using Happy Hippo Home Decor? Fun fact, that is Kyle's sister's company. Shout out Kyle's sister. All right,
Crystal.
start the show. Alrighty, welcome, guys. Welcome to another episode of Sittin Courtside. Today, we're going to be covering basically everything you need to know leading up to week one. We've got some updated news, sad news, and exciting news for Kyle specifically. We've got exhibition surprises. We got a couple of the big games early for next week. Everything you need to have for today. Before we start that, Kyle, how we been, buddy? How we been the last week?
Doing well, doing great. I mean, besides for this weather, we woke up to 3 inches of snow yesterday, so that wasn't very nice. But other than that, it was a nice, fun weekend of watching sports last weekend, and we're just 3 days away from the start of college basketball season. So I'm doing great. How about you?
You know what? I can't complain. I have actually been pretty good, but kind of not okay at the same time. Got a really busy time with my actual job, but there's no need for that here because we're here about good times. But I do need to just bring up a couple things really quickly, because I'm getting older now, and I've decided that maybe I actually am an old person. Because fun fact, I'm 33 now, and you haven't got to this point in your life yet, Kyle, because I'm a little bit older than you. But as anyone over the age of 25 knows, until about 32, you think you're 25 still. I recently turned 33 and have realized all of a sudden I'm an old person. My kids think I'm old. People that work for me to think that I'm old. And I've started to think like an old person. So much so, I wrote down a list of 4 things that I have learned since turning 33.
Oh,
right.
okay. Let's hear
And
it.
these are going to be things you're like, oh my God, Jordan, this is a college basketball podcast, but I think we can also make this a life podcast. Okay. So we're going to go 4-1. Sorry, 4-1. Number 4. I don't really like turkey that much.
Okay.
I don't know why I decided I didn't like it, but honestly, there's a lot of other foods I've noticed in the last couple months that I've been eating for like the last decade. Like I've been forcing myself to eat. I'm just not really a fan of them. Like, I don't know why I've chose to eat them, but I've decided now that I'm only going to eat foods I like. Things on that list I don't like. Carrots. Why do people eat carrots? I don't get it.
I don't eat carrots.
It's
either.
a root. Disgusting. Eggs. Not a big fan of eggs, honestly.
Oh, wow.
I don't get the allure. Like they kind of make me sick to my stomach when I just smell them. I don't get people that like eggs. Pork, including bacon, which that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that knows me. I've been on that hot take for a while.
Wow.
Orange juice, not a big fan of orange juice. Kids love orange juice, but I think it's because kids love sugar. I don't get it. I don't think I need to go on. Those are foods I feel like most people love. They're trash. I don't get off of them.
So wait, real quick. So you're telling me you wouldn't like eggs and bacon with a mimosa on the side?
No. I'll take the
Oh my
mimosa, but
goodness.
see, you're making the orange juice alcohol now. And I think I need to be clear on this. It's not that I won't eat these foods. They're like tier 3 foods for me. Now, let me explain. Okay. I've tiered my foods out for people. Okay. Tier 1. Those are foods that you'll eat every day, every week, no problem. Pizza, French fries, chicken wings. Love them. Tier 2 foods are foods that you like, but like they're more like nostalgic food for you. Maybe like you only want them a couple times a year, right? Like I'm gonna go back on this a little bit, but just as an example for people, like people love ham, but like the cooked ham in the oven, right? Give me that for Christmas and I'm done. Okay. I don't need that for a lot. Coleslaw. That's like a holiday thing, like Thanksgiving. I don't need it the rest of the year. Okay. Tier 3 foods. Tier 3 foods are you eat them, you don't mind them, but like if they disappeared tomorrow, like you'd be totally fine with it, right? Carrots, pork, orange juice, hot dogs, pickles, things like they could disappear tomorrow. I could care less. And then tier 4 foods are just foods you hate. For me, peas. Peas are trash. Pie. Yeah. Pie is trash. All right.
Wow. Okay.
There you go. Next one I got on the list here. People constantly tell you in your early 20s that like you need to grow up, right? Like you're 20
Mhm.
years old, you need to grow up. You're 22, learn what you need to do with your life. Wrong. Your 20s are for you to actually grow up and learn who the freak you actually are and what you actually like doing.
Mhm.
Hot take. I think for both of us, actually, we both got married at an extremely young age. And we've
Mhm.
been lucky, I think, nonetheless. We have been finding good matches for us. But I'm convinced that the divorce rate is so high because people get married at like 23, 24, and 25. They don't even know who they are at that point.
Uh-huh.
And then you find yourself at 35 and you're like, I don't like you. All right. I don't know who you are, but no, stop. Right. Okay. Next thing I got here, and I'll move quickly here. I'm really into audiobooks. Love
Okay.
audiobooks now. I'm listening to a series called The School for Good and Evil. Name dropping that. 6 book series. I'm on book 4. I'll give you a quick little summary. The entire book series is literally made for like 12 to 14-year-old girls because it's based on like fantasy and
Mhm.
like Cinderella and Snow White and all these like fantasy made up storylines, but it's like 2 other people in the story. Love it. It's great. I know. Weird. Stepping back a little bit. Um, and then the last thing that I've noticed, like I said, I'm finally an old person.
Mhm.
Like I find myself being curmudgeony for no reason
Curmudgeon.
whatsoever. Like I almost feel like there's this weird thing that we've done in America. We've tricked people into thinking that like as you get older, like you need to slowly become more Republican.
No. Okay.
Like, like mermaids are white. No, or like, I don't know, this character is Asian. That's wrong. In the book, they're white. Like you get mad about shit that don't matter. It makes no sense. I know. Um, and then I do have a bonus one that I've learned
Okay.
just for you, Kyle.
Okay.
Cheaters always win.
Cheers.
Always. Michigan, Kansas,
Yeah.
Duke, you know, schools like that. Like you cheat, you can get away with it and win. So those are the lessons
Okay.
I've learned since turning 33.
Okay. So you said at 32 you become old, or is it 33 that you become
33,
old?
you're officially old. Like
Okay. So
32, you're still on the edge of like, I could do this. I could totally have 17 beers and 7 shots and feel totally fine tomorrow for work. That's a lie. You can't.
so I got about 16 months
You
until I'm
got it,
officially
dude. You
old.
better make the
So
next Final Four really worth it because I will gladly be your DD because I'm old now.
okay, perfect.
We can start talking
All
about
right.
basketball now, though, if you'd like.
Okay, let's get into it. Let's talk about some recent news in college basketball. First off, let's talk about the recent exhibitions because we've had some shocking results.
Yeah.
Most importantly, I think, is that the number one team, Kansas, they lost to Illinois 82 to 75. Terrence Shannon, you might remember a couple years ago, played for Texas Tech when they were top 10 team all season. He led the way for Illinois. He had 8 out of 13 shots. And as I mentioned last podcast, I kind of want to start with this. I had Illinois as a sneaky team, a good value for the national title. That went down already because of this exhibition win, but I still like
Right.
them. I just wanted to point that out because this is a good start to that, hopefully, nice bet.
Yeah. Man, that feels bad for you right now if you didn't get that future in. I mean, you pulled that out of the hat like Illinois sneaky good, and then exhibition news has to get out.
Yeah.
This is why we need to go back to like 1994 when those things don't happen, right? Like
Yeah.
just for the betters. But
yes.
yeah, I told you though too, right? Like Kansas, what's going to happen with them? They got the allegations. Well, then they finally got penalized for them. Like, what was that going to mean for the start of their season?
Mhm.
Is this a sign of things to come? I don't know, but it
Yeah.
is, I think, a little concerning. Whenever, I mean, what Illinois, I think, is like what 25th. I think
Yep.
that's where they were
25th.
like a fringe team. You're supposed to be this outright number one, and from
Hmm.
what I've heard beyond just the score, like they kind of got handled. Quite frankly,
Yeah.
like they got
Hmm.
bully balled. So I think that's a little concerning for Kansas. We'll see what happens with that, but not a good sign. I'll say that.
No. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how, like, if it was just a great shooting night by Illinois or the Kansas defense was that bad. 53% from the field. So something was
Yeah,
wrong there for Kansas defense.
yeah, not it's not good either because they have such good senior leadership. But
Mm.
yeah,
All right, and another upset here. Purdue loses to Arkansas, 81 to 77 in overtime. Arkansas had 5 players in double figures, led by Tremont Mark, who had 15. He also shot. They also shot 50% from the field, and they forced a crazy 20
Mhm.
turnovers for Purdue. Edey was in foul trouble, but he did get 15 and 9. Both of these teams opened up with some easy wins to start the season, but then Purdue's schedule is a beast. They go against Xavier, Gonzaga to start Maui, so they're going to have more big games at Maui. Then they play Alabama and Arizona as well. Arkansas just has Duke and Oklahoma really to note in their non-conference, but Purdue loses this game in a close one in overtime, but they have quite the schedule that I noticed. That was the biggest point away that I took away is their schedule in this offseason or this non-conference season.
Yeah. I'm going to sound like a little bit of a hypocrite, and I guess after what I just said about Kansas, but I don't take as much from this. And I feel like it's because, again, Arkansas is an extremely young team. So I feel like for them, like they treated this like a regular season game. Purdue, a little bit more seasoned. They kind of understand like what their expectations are and where they've had the downfall the last 2 seasons. Not that they didn't take this game serious, but I could see them they weren't going 100% up and down the floor every single time, right? Where Arkansas, I feel like to them, they were doing this on purpose. The Muss Bus definitely treated this like we're prepping for a potential like Sweet 16 Elite 8 matchup. We're treating it like such. Painter, he's what they call him, like the accountant or whatever. Like he's very dialed in. I'm not worried about Purdue in this instance. I'm more or less impressed with Arkansas. It makes me feel better about my SEC pick that I gave last week.
Yeah, and then the most pointless stat that I read after this game, that was the first loss that Matt Painter's ever had in an exhibition. He's 26-1 now.
Let's talk about the Ravens preseason record too. Like, what are we talking about?
A pretty irrelevant D1 team, but if you don't watch college basketball that much, this team used to be good every year. Louisville, they lost to a Division II team, Kentucky Wesleyan. They went 4-28 last year, Louisville, and this does not leave any good faith for this season to be any better. They lost 71-68. And it's just a note, just right off the bat, when you see Louisville playing a non-conference game against a nobody, don't take their -15 whenever they're playing a real bad team, because they are a bad team.
I think this might be the worst of every exhibition game. And I know we all know Louisville's not great, and they've got a lot going on against them. But if you just think back to the last season and how they kind of got handled against Bellarmine, who was a little bit of a surprise at the time, you throw this into the mix. And then add to that, a lot of the articles you're reading of people that were at the game, like everyone thinks that Louisville might be the worst basketball team in Kentucky. Like all of Kentucky. I forget who I seen like made an entire list of all the teams that could beat Louisville. And I think it was like every single college in Kentucky. It was insane. Not looking good for Louisville. I know they made the coach change. I think it was last year. Everyone wanted the Bellarmine head coach. They didn't go with him. It's going to not be great for Louisville if they can't figure out in the non-conference. I think they're going to get a pass in the ACC because the ACC is the ACC. But trouble in paradise for Louisville, especially when you think literally just a decade ago, they were the best team in the country.
Then the last one I had on my list, and we can go over to yours, is St. John's also lost to a Division II team, Pace University. Rick Pitino's first time on the court with St. John's, and they lost. The reason they lost is because they shot 32% from the field, losing 63-59. I didn't dive too much into this because St. John's, you're not going to learn too much about them until you actually watch them over like a month or two, because they're going to develop. But just not a good look for the very first game under Rick Pitino.
Yep. So I actually had it on my list. Number one on here, St. John's loses to Pace. Who is Pace, by the way? They're a university in New York City. Fun fact about Pace, they have a larger undergrad enrollment than St. John's.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's my fun fact. If you want to know their history, though, they were actually bounced in the first round last year, the D2 tournament, went 20-9 overall, 11-9 in their conference. Their conference only has 6 teams in it.
Wow. So
they're part of like the Northeast 10, but it only has 6 teams apparently.
Oh, okay.
So I wouldn't say it's a good start to the Rick Pitino era when you're losing to Pace. And I had to do research to find out who that was in the first place. So, but yeah, good for Pace, I guess. You might be the best team in New York. I don't.
Honestly, when I read the headline, like Louisville loses to D2 Pace, I thought like they meant like some D2 team that like runs up and down the court a lot. Like it's a fast-paced team.
Yeah, it was interesting. Needless to say.
All
right, I got 2.
All right.
And I'm kind of surprised a couple of these weren't on your list. I'm going to be honest. Okay. Tennessee.
I saw this one.
Whomps Michigan State without their backcourt. Both starters were
Mhm.
out, won the game outright. Good for Tennessee.
Mhm.
Michigan State, that's a little concerning.
Yep, especially when
You
they're ranked
you were
4th.
supposed to be a potential Final Four national title team competing for the Big Ten title. You played Tennessee, which is nice, but they didn't have their two best players.
Yeah.
Even
Mhm.
if you were playing around, you should have still won that game by double digits, especially since Michigan State's strength is their guard play. Not good.
Yep.
Not good for Michigan State. Maybe, I know we just talked about Purdue losing, but maybe hammer them to win the Big Ten at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
And the surprise of the entire week,
Okay.
Wake Forest takes out Alabama.
Oh, wow, I didn't see this one. Tell me about it.
Yeah. Cam Hildreth goes for 38 points.
Oh my,
38.
okay.
And Zag transfer Hunter Salas goes for 27. Wake Forest shot out of their minds. Bit shocking since Wake Forest is basically irrelevant.
Didn't receive a single vote for the rankings this year.
Yeah, so a bit surprising for me when I read that. Also with Cam Hildreth going for 38, like what? Excuse
Yeah.
me. So that was my surprise, and that will actually in my list for the exhibition surprises. But yeah,
All right.
been interesting for the ACC if Wake Forest happens to be decent.
Yeah, that is interesting because their best player last year was a fifth-year senior, so I knew they didn't have him anymore. So I just thought they were completely irrelevant.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right, more news. Obviously, the biggest news to me is that the number one recruit in the 2025 college basketball season or 2024 college basketball season,
Mm-hmm.
Cooper Flagg, committed to Duke. He chose Duke over UConn. They've always been the favorite to get him, but UConn made a late push. If you guys don't really know anything about this tall, lengthy white guy that all of America will hate when he's at Duke, but he'll be
Yes,
beloved by Duke fans, likely the
100%.
number one pick in the 2025 NBA draft. And he's one of those tall guys that plays out on the perimeter more than he plays on the inside. He's just one of those freak athletes that can do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, so he actually reclassified. He was supposed to be in the class of 2025. And for the longest time, I think it was between him and
Boozer.
correct, who was going to be the guy. And I think they went to the Nike Classic in New York, I believe is where it was at. And he owned the weekend. I think in total, he averaged over 30 points a game. His team won the tournament there. That's really, I think, what put him like officially, like he is that much better than everyone. But yeah, literally just pause this right now. Google Cooper Flagg, which by the way is already the most fucking Duke name I've ever heard. Just look at a picture of him and you're like, oh yeah, that guy goes to Duke.
Yep.
Also, did you see the quote did you see the quote?
I did not see the
When
quote.
he committed to Duke, he literally goes, I can't wait to be part of the brotherhood.
Oh, yep.
What is
That's their
this? What are we doing? What just a douchey thing to say. Okay. Like I
and
already hate
everybody
the
at
kid,
Duke
but I
says
also
it.
kind of love him. Like
Yeah.
I actually thought about this sidebar. Me being such good friends with you is affecting my Duke hatred.
I think you mentioned that last pod
Like
too.
I'm starting to like them, and I actually thought about it for a minute. I was like, I think I might actually like John Shire. And I'm like, but he is the most Duke looking coach. Like, but I can't help but like him. He's so damn likable. I'm scared at this point. I'm scared we're gonna go to the Final Four, and if Duke is actually there, I might have to show up in like a Duke jersey at this point because they're my national title pick. But yeah, I hate you.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, the next one I had on my list was just a little shout out to the two teams that broke up all the brackets last year, FDU and St. Peter's. They actually are going to play on national TV this year. Yep. So it's just kind of cool. Neither team, I looked at their very first games. They're double-digit underdogs against nobody, so I don't know if they're going to be that good, either of them. Yep. But at least they get the spotlight after having an amazing run in the tournament last year.
No, I think that's good. I think it's great for college basketball. I'm pretty excited about it, and I will try to watch every single minute of that game.
Yep. Did you have any news you wanted to talk about?
I only have the one other thing that I don't like to hinder on because this is supposed to be fun, free. Bob Knight. I think we have to mention Bob Knight. Did die. Well, by the time you see this, will be 2 days ago. And it's home in Bloomington. I thought about this for a moment. I wanted to get your opinion. Where do you rank Bob Knight in the pantheon of college basketball coaches?
mean, he's got to be like without trying to think of all of them, he's got to be top five, right? Top five. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's hard because I never was an IU fan, and then everything you learned about him growing up, because I was so young that I don't really
Yeah.
remember him coaching all that much. But just from like stats and stuff, and like achievement, and only having like one lottery pick ever, and that being Isaiah Thomas, so he
Hmm.
made the most of what he had. So I'll go top five without like looking down a list and going through
Yeah.
everybody. But what about you?
So I thought about this for a while because for a while I was like, he's the greatest coach of all time because like
Mm,
he was a bad person. But everyone that seems to play for him really up until like the late 90s loved him. Like
yeah.
loved him to death. And you're right, he maybe didn't produce the most talent NBA wise, but I think when you think about what he's did, like the mark is still kind of what was it, that 87 Indiana team? Like that's still kind of the mark. There's something that
Mm,
goes with that. And then I think the other thing, I'm not gonna say he's the greatest coach of all time, but I think he belongs on like the Mount Rushmore of coaches
yeah.
because
Mm,
he has the greatest college basketball coaching tree simply because of one person,
mm,
Coach K, who
yeah.
might actually be the greatest coach of all time, right?
Yeah.
So like
Mm,
when you can say that like, oh, Bob Knight's protege was the greatest coach of all time,
yeah.
like there's a lot that goes with that. He is fifth in wins, fun
Yeah.
fact. 905, I think it is. So I think he belongs on Mount Rushmore just because of the Coach K impact and what he did through the 70s and 80s, really, with the game of basketball. You can't write the history of college basketball and not mention Bob Knight.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's where I
Completely
stand with
agree.
that.
All right. Get back to more upbeat topics here. We're gonna
Yes,
do
back
some pick.
back to the good
Or
stuff.
we're gonna do some picks, but before we do picks,
We have a sponsor.
yes.
Are you craving the ultimate game day snack? Because I know I am. Look no further than Orville Redenbacher's gourmet popcorn. All right. It's not just popcorn, it's a slam dunk in every bite. Okay. With a legacy of buttery perfection, Orville Redenbacher's pops your favorite moments. Kyle, you know what I love. I love the ultimate butter. Give me all the butter. I want it in my mouth and I want it to be delicious. I might even sprinkle just a hair of popcorn salt on it. What's your favorite way to eat popcorn?
Oh, I said last time just regular standard with butter, but I thought about it more after we got off this, and then I looked at it in our cabinet, and we had the Chicago style where it's
Oh,
caramel corn and cheese, and I think let's go with that one.
that is a good way to get your popcorn. I'm not gonna lie. That's how we love our popcorn. Go find your way of loving your popcorn at your nearest store and make every day game day with Orville Redenbacher.
Okay, so just a reminder of how we're going to do picks moving forward. We're going to do two podcasts per week, but our picks will be always be able to be found on our Twitter. I'm at Kyle Cliffy. Jordan, you're
At Mingo Made One. Also, just fun facts for me. If you want some additional things, I am also over at Betting Pros. Um, I'll be honest with you. I think you can just go to the search format. They have an app for free. Add that as well. You can get all my picks, including college basketball, football, etc. So
So again, Mondays will be just recap the weekend. We'll just preview the games. We won't be giving picks on Mondays, but we will be giving picks on Thursdays. But to see all of our picks, go to our Twitter because we will be giving them out every day. We only have 4 games on the slate today, but we do have spreads for 3 of those games. So we thought, why not give you guys picks, even though we're only doing one pod? The first game is Georgia versus Oregon on Monday, November 1st. It's in Las Vegas, neutral site, 4:30 p.m. Very weird time. Not sure why they're playing at that time, but whatever. Georgia -4.5 over under 140.5. What I have notes here on Georgia is they were outside the top 150 in KenPom last year, but their backcourt is pretty solid. They have RJ Melendez that you might remember from Illinois, and they also got a transfer from Niagara who averaged 20 points per game. They were one of the worst D1 teams at shooting the three last year, but I think with those two improvements, that was kind of not going to be what we see from them this year. Oregon, much different roster this season than what the Ducks had last year, including the 9th best recruiting class this season. Their starting lineup will feature 4 guys who scored 9 or more points per game, and they have 2 5-star freshmen that look like they'll be the 6th and 7th men coming right off the bench early. Do you have a lean here? What's your thoughts on Georgia versus Oregon?
So I think it's an interesting game. Oregon, we know, has been one of those fringe teams for a while now. I think this is a good opportunity for them to kind of put their stamp as like we're a basketball school also. For the game, it's pretty simple for me. I'm going to go Oregon -4.5, and I'm also going to take the under 140.5 as well.
Okay, and
I'm
I
going to double
think
duo
actually,
this game up.
let me look this up real quick because I think you're actually getting points here. It's Georgia -4.5.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
it even more. I wrote it
yes,
down
I
incorrect.
did too. So, unless
Give me
ESPN's
the
lying to us right now.
+4.5. Let's go.
Yep, I'm going with the same thing here. I'm going with Oregon. They have the better coach. They were a better team by a mile last year. Niagara transfer is the best player on the court, but I'm never really in on Georgia basketball, so I'll go with Oregon +4.5.
Yeah. Also, another reason why, I guess, to maybe give more explanation on the under, everything you just said, right? Like these teams are trying to refigure out who they are. You
Mhm.
still got to mesh together. You can practice all year you want, but now you're gonna play real competition. 140, I feel like it's a little bit of a high number, honestly, for an
Mhm.
early game. Offense always lags. I don't care what you say. So that was why I went with the lean.
All right. Next up is also on Monday at 10 p.m. Number 21 USC versus Kansas State, also in Las Vegas. USC is a 2.5 point favorite. The over under is 143.5. USC, this is the first chance we get to see their loaded roster featuring Boogie Ellis and Isaiah Kohler. This lineup is pretty much formed in the offseason with Ollie Ellis been the returnee that really played a big role in USC's season last year. Kansas State, after a wonderful season where they went to the Elite Eight and won 26 games, they will look to roll that momentum into this season without their two stars from last year, Noel and Keontae Johnson. They'll be playing an up-tempo style, and I actually read a quote from their coach that they'll be playing 5 out. So that there's teams of size that could really hurt them this season, but it'll be very interesting to watch them play basically 5 guards or 5 guards and forwards that on the
Yeah.
perimeter. I'm going to go with USC -2.5 here, though. I think it's way too small of a line for what I expect to be a pretty talented and pretty good team. I don't think without those two stars that they relied very heavily on at Kansas State that they'll be ready to go right off the bat here. So I'll take USC -2.5.
All right. I like that. It's hard for me to really jump on the USC bandwagon. Never been a fan of USC. I liked K-State last year. They're one of my favorite teams when we got into the tournament. We did mention earlier Creighton transfer. I'm missing his name. I think it's Kessler, maybe transfer to K-State. One of their top scorers last year. So K-State's going to get some experience on the boards there. You mentioned they run the up-tempo pace, and USC. I don't know if you guys watched the McDonald's All-American game with the players they have. They don't play defense. Don't think about playing defense. Never thought about playing defense. I'm gonna take the over 143.5. Both of these teams are gonna want to run up and down the court all day. I think that number gets hit pretty easily, especially if those young freshmen at USC can shoot the way we think they can. This number should be hit probably with about 8 minutes to go in the game.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. All right, let's move on to Tuesday, November 2nd, where we just have one game. It's Auburn versus number 20 Baylor in South Dakota at 9 p.m.
Mhm.
Baylor is a 1.5 point favorite. We do not have an over under yet on this game. So check our Twitter if you're interested in that. We might have a pick, we might not have a pick. So just check it. Auburn, while they're not ranked, they did receive the 6th most votes for teams that didn't get ranked. They're going to rely heavy on transfers this season. They do have one really big returnee and Broom, he was their leading scorer, rebounder, and blocks with 14 points per game, 8 rebounds, and 2.4 blocks per game. They have 8 upperclassmen, a 5-star freshman, and a former 5-star now sophomore that make up their 10-man rotation. So they're a deep team. And then Baylor, after a good season but a shockingly bad defensive season, they retooled and they added a lot of size, including a 7-foot freshman. His last name is Missy. I don't want to try to pronounce his first name. And they also got a transfer from Toledo who averaged nearly 20 points per game and shot 37% from three, and that's Ray J. Dennis. These are two teams that look very different from last year. I think this opens as a very small spread, which it did at -1.5. So I'm going to take Baylor because I was going to take them up to -4. So I'm going to take Baylor minus the 1.5 here.
Yeah, so I did some research over the last couple of days. I think this Bruce Pearl team in Auburn is kind of sneaky good.
Mm-hmm.
He's been known to play a defensive style of basketball. Baylor, on the other hand, they usually are really good at defense, but you mentioned they weren't great last year. They tried to retool. I don't have a pick for you right this moment. I'm going to
Okay.
lean the under, But I will say, if it's anything probably below like 136-ish, I'm probably going to have to take the over. But right now, I think this number is going to be something similar to what we saw with Georgia Oregon, around the 140 number.
All right, so let's move to our last game on the slate, Wednesday, November 3rd. Number 10 FAU versus Loyola in Chicago. It is at 7 p.m. We don't have a line here and don't expect a close spread. I think
Nope.
it'll be double digits, if not minus 15 for FAU. And we all know about FAU. Great season last year, huge expectations in a new conference this year. They return all 5 starters and they will run back their 4-guard offense. They're one of the best defensive teams in the nation last year, and they're going to go 7 to 8 players deep, with 6 of those being guards. So they should remain efficient on both sides of the ball. Loyola, absolutely terrible in the A10 in their first season last year, finished 10-21 overall and last in the A10. They do have 8 returnees coming back, and they have 5 new players. Leading scorer Alston will be their best player. But I mean, they're building it up to be like an A10 program. It's just going to take a while. I don't see how they compete at the top level, and FAU is the top level. Like they're top 10, they should be top 5. If it's anything less than 15, I'll take FAU plus or minus the 15, but check my Twitter just to get the exact pick.
Love what you said there. Loyola, always a very disciplined team. I will at least give them that. FAU is a new level. They have everything we always talk about. They have great guard play. They have senior leadership, and they have a lot of experience deep into tournaments. I'm going to take FAU pretty much. I've been debating it. I think I'm going to take them all the way up to minus 18.5.
Okay, I like it.
Anything over that, I'm going to start thinking about it, and I'll probably maybe look at the over under. But I don't know. It's such a weird game, because if FAU starts to run away from it, I could see them kind of peeling it back and not getting anywhere close to the total. So I want to see what happens. But right now, I'm going FAU spread, basically anything up to about 18.5.
Awesome. Love it. So there's our first picks for the college basketball season. Next week, we'll be coming out with the podcast again on we'll be recording on Thursday, so it'll be coming out Friday, and Friday is a huge day. We have some epic matchups, so definitely listen to the pod, check the Twitter, because we have games like Arizona at Duke, Texas A&M at Ohio State, Tennessee at Wisconsin, San Diego State at BYU. Huge games to come in our next podcast. So just ramping up. We had a shorter episode here, but next week's episode should have tons of analysis and so many picks on our Twitter.
Yes, can't wait.
All right, well, we'll see you next time, and good luck in your first week of bets.
Love you guys.